jumps around the
Okay.
speed. So just keep in mind that we're buffeting winds here, and we're at about 1,000 feet or so above this chase. So
Wow.
we have some other factors involved in the speedometer, but I
Yeah.
wanted to put it up there to give you an
Sure.
idea exactly close to how fast we're going.
No, we love that, man. Thanks for putting that up there. But I wonder. He's now and then he picks up some pretty good speed. I'm just wondering if there's something under that hood other than a Nissan engine, because if there's, I don't know what kind of sedan it is, but I initially thought it was a BMW, but perhaps it's not. I might be wrong. Yeah, perhaps.
Well, I'm not exactly sure. We thought at first it was a Lexus. It looks to me it could be a Lexus or a Nissan. It definitely is an import. But there you can see
and
it.
look, right now he's going
close behind.
Yeah, close behind. You see him slowing down every now and then. He'll go at the speeds of traffic, which is probably 65, right around that area. But then all of a sudden he'll pick up and he'll move to 80 or 90 miles an hour real quick. Okay, we understand
we have confirmed that it is a Lexus.
Okay, terrific. All right, good to know. All right, well, with a Lexus engine, you're going to have a little more power and speed with that. They're known to be pretty sporty sedans, so he's moving along real fast. We don't know. I don't have any idea.
Channel right now.
Okay, now we're going over to the ship channel bridge. We are not sure as to why police were on top of this to begin with, why they tried to stop him, and why he began to run. But we're trying to vet that information at this point. All right, so he remains to go southbound on the 610. Go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as I mentioned earlier, that we find it kind of unusual that DPS is up here with us as opposed to HPD. HPD is the ground chase units. And it wouldn't surprise me if we saw DPS show up when this finally comes to an end.
Right.
I don't know whether they were trying to put out spike strips, but we just passed 3 actual police cars that were down there off to the side. So not exactly sure what that was about. They were back there just as we exited the freeway.
Yeah. On these freeways like this gives them opportunity when they know exactly where he's headed, at least knowing that he's going south in the loop. They can station out those spike strips, a couple of miles in advance and move traffic to one direction or the other so that they can kind of funnel that vehicle into an area that would allow him to run over those spike strips. But it's not always that easily done. I mean, this is especially at this speed. So here he moves along, still on the 610 East Loop. He is remaining on the freeway, on the loop. There it's down to 2 lanes, so we're right around the 225 exit. Is that right? Is that what?
I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that is the 610 South Loop now. We've just passed over I-45, the Gulf Freeway, passing the Gulf Gate area, headed back toward the Astrodome, which is where we picked them up over there off of Yellowstone and 288. So they've made a great big huge circle.
Yeah, they certainly have. I mean, he's sort of traversed his way around the south and the northeast area, or south area, east area, and then come back down to the same place he was originally. Yeah, he's just on the opposite side of the freeway, so now he's on the south loop, still moving along pretty good. He's going to be coming up on the NRG Center and the NRG Park.
Many times when we see these, Art, we always think about the fact that many times they tend to travel in an area that they're familiar with. So we'll assume at this point anyway that this person is, if they don't live in this part of town, at least they're familiar with this part of town, the freeway system and the side streets.
Yeah.
Usually they will exit the freeway into a neighborhood that they're more familiar with, and that's generally speaking when these chases come to an end.
Right.
We could be doing laps like the Indy 500 here for the rest of the afternoon, the way this is going.
Right, and it's generally pretty easy for HPD to stay right on top of someone who's on the freeway like this, no matter how fast they're going, because these police vehicles, they can travel at practically any speed that some of these other vehicles can travel at. And you have behind him at least 4 or 5 HPD. HPD, by the way, is not in the air. We know that DPS is in the air, but you're still on the ground. You have HPD. Those are HPD there vehicles. But he's he just seems to be moving along, and not all that fast right now. Maybe at 80 miles an hour or so. I don't know. But you wonder what he's going to do here if he's really trying to get away. And we certainly don't want him to try and do that, because they really start doing some stupid things. Although this is on the level of, you know, some pretty crazy stuff anyway, just even trying to run from police. But we've seen this all the time, Don.
In just a little bit here, we're going to be coming up back onto 288 and see what's going on over here. That seems to be another accident going the opposite direction down here on the South Loop. But we will be coming up on 288 here, and if you're familiar with it, they've got a lot of construction going on in that area. And these lanes that he is traveling on going westbound here on the South Loop will pinch down to a couple of lanes once you get down to 288. There you just pass the sign that gives the drivers heads up as to 288 is just ahead. So now he's signaling to change lanes. That's odd.
That is odd. I just have this frame of mind where he's trying to get away from police. He's speeding. He's already broken dozens of laws, and yet he signals to go. You can see his signal there, Don. He's, you know, trying to move over to the right-hand side.
I have to say this, and that is the fact that this may or may not be a him. It could be a her.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
That when we went on a chase not that long ago, ended up on the 610 West Loop in a Jeep, and as it turned out, it was a female that was leading the chase.
Well, and we have learned that that is happening more and more often. I mean, we've seen it again and again. Oh, there he goes, trying to sneak off the freeway, and he did it. And the police are right behind him still. Now let's see what happens.
This is Scott Street.
Okay, this is Scott Street.
Now we're stuck in traffic. Let's see. Yep.
This is where it gets always interesting here. You know, when you start getting off into the...
This is where accidents happen.
Yeah, exactly right. This is how where accidents happen, where people begin... Let's see, is he going to go back on the loop? If he gets back on the South Loop to go eastbound...
Yeah, I'm going to go eastbound now. Yep.
Okay, this may be the only part of town that this guy is used to. So he's familiar with, because now we're going back in the same direction that he originally started with long ago. You know what?
As a matter of fact, I was just reminded, Art, that there is an accident up ahead. If you remember correctly, we pointed that out as we passed it.
So he's going to run into that.
On the freeway, they're going to come to a dead stop up ahead.
Well, that wasn't a very smart move then. Not very strategic on his point to be getting back on the South Loop and now headed westbound, going very fast. You can see him picking up speed, but you're right, Don. We saw that accident not too much further ahead of him, and they have that accident was bringing traffic to a crawl. And you can bet that now HPD is on the radio with those other folks over there at that accident, probably telling them to shut that thing down entirely, all lanes, to see what happens. It will be interesting once they approach that.
Well, there they go.
Oh, there he goes. Okay, well, that was his strategy.
Off the freeway onto the feeder,
He just got off the freeway. Yep, right onto the feeder. Well, you know those wheels are going to be pretty damaged as a result of that. You can just climb on and off the freeway without up and down on those curbs. But here we are off the freeway. Wait, is this back to Scott? No, this is Martin Luther King, isn't it?
Yes. This is Martin Luther King, and we're headed northbound now.
Okay. Northbound
through these intersections.
Ooh, yeah, that's where it's so dangerous. You go racing through those intersections, and when you're traveling at that speed, it's just too difficult to see anyone else and anyone else to see that vehicle before someone just pulls out in front. Okay, there's Perry Street.
This is a street called Perry. This is a street called Perry over here.
Ooh, in the residential area, going that fast. That's not good.
In a residential area, and they've sped up considerably.
Let's see, he might, and what usually happens...
You can see you can see the street names on our SkyMap technology there.
Love those street names just popping up right there. He was on Perry Street, now he's on, boy, those things are bad. Beachman Street. You know, this is what usually happens in these neighborhoods sometimes as well. They just find some place to bail and run. But he wouldn't go into a neighborhood like this unless he was absolutely familiar with it. He's on Keystone Street now. He's kind of circled around, really moving fast. They're back to Martin Luther now. Let's see if he goes left or right. There he is, now going southbound. He's back headed south, right, on Martin Luther?
To be honest with you, Art, I've lost direction. I know that we're having a hard time maneuvering up here. We've got other helicopters up here with us, and so we've got to pay attention to that. And
Sure.
To be honest with you, I don't know.
You know what?
Looks as though we're heading.
Yeah.
We're heading south. We're heading toward the south loop.
That's what I
again.
thought. Yeah, toward the south loop again.
I have to glance over to my compass over here to look myself.
You know, Don just does just a Herculean job to the audience out there. Think of guiding this camera, which is on that helicopter, as well as maneuvering the helicopter. I know, you know, there's a pilot there that does that, but still, it's just awesome job you're taking care of here, Don, and bringing us some extraordinary
Kevin
pictures.
Yip is our pilot this afternoon, and he's doing a bang-up job. I'll tell you, it's because we're also in restricted airspace. This is over here in Hobby Airport space, so he's having to deal with them and the other helicopter traffic while I'm talking to you and trying to keep up with the chase with the camera.
So other helicopter traffic and everything else that goes on, along with restricted airspace because of Hobby, but yet we get it to you first. We get it on the air, and well, he at least stopped there. But let's see what happens now. Okay, Colon Boulevard. Oh, they guessed where he was going to go. Now trying to block him in, but he's going over the median, right around the police officer.
Sure need to set him up for a pit maneuver here,
Right.
Art.
Yeah, they're going to have to do that.
There's no doubt about it, because somebody's going to get really seriously injured if they don't stick the neck out and do that here quickly.
You're right. You're right. And that's when they know it's getting really, really dangerous, and he's in a populated area, and if they have some clarity and some space to be able to do it, you look how he's pulling up to the side, Don. He's getting up, perhaps trying to get over to the side to possibly work on doing a pit maneuver.
Yeah, there's just a little bit too much traffic on this main boulevard
traffic,
here.
Right.
Okay, we're just crossed over Holmes Road.
Oh, a lot of traffic. Let's see what he does here. Well, he's going to go for the field.
Off-roading here. This is over at the 610 loop.
Yeah, he's not afraid to go off-roading. He's done that, I think, at least 3 or 4 times now.
So we're getting back on the loop.
Okay. We're back on the south loop, but is he before or after the accident? He might run into the same accident, right?
Well, I think that he's headed over toward, let me see. It looks like he's headed over toward Reliance Stadium, Astrodome area.
Okay, so he's headed
over to 288.
Yeah, back over to 288. He's headed eastbound now on the south loop.
Yep.
He's been doing this for a good 45 minutes now. No indication of slowing down,
There's the construction
stopping.
area. Yeah. We're coming up on 288 here shortly.
Okay, so he's gone left. Yeah, that's a mess to get through there. A lot of construction. Well, police right behind him. Look at him. You see how police are trying to get to one side of him. Sometimes they will attempt to do that, and then that's when they work the pit maneuver. But at this point, if there's too much traffic and they're going way too fast, they're going to probably have to wait until they get off into a residential area.
Okay, that's 288, so we're now approaching the Astrodome Reliance Center area.
Okay.
This is all the construction that I was telling you. You know, lanes narrow down to a couple lanes there.
Right.
For the through traffic headed over toward the West Loop and Astrodome area.
Well, because of this pandemic, I think that clearly the freeways are just not as congested as they used to be. We still have a lot of people staying home, and no doubt a lot are watching this high-speed chase, waiting for it to come to an end and wondering how it's going to end. And that's always the frightening thing about it, is we always wonder, you know, and you always have some degree of trepidation that this thing is going to end with some major accident. That's what we do not want it to end. We do not want it to end that way. Whoa, we hit one of those cones, and so did the officer.
Yep.
Oh,
now
he's
going to go back up.
Yeah.
They're doing it. The person's doing everything they can to lose police, but that's not going to happen.
No, you know what? Because if he loses even that guy right behind him, there are a dozen others still behind that officer. So.
And not to mention that, but we're also up here.
Right.
Let's see if something happens
Let's
here.
see. You see how he gets on the side of him like that.
Yep.
But
yeah, the chase car actually clipped one of those construction barrels and took the right side mirror off of it. We saw it go flying along with the barrel.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that barrel. The one who's running from Belize, he clipped it as well, and then you're right, the officer just slammed into the rest of it.
Now they're going at such a high rate of speed, I don't know as if a pit maneuver would be the best thing to do here.
Yeah, there's so many people on the freeway as well. I mean, not super congested, but when you try and pit maneuver at that speed, and you might be crashing into other vehicles. So we'll see what happens here as he continues to race through the south part of town, 610 South Loop. He is headed eastbound still. And at some point, we're going to be coming...
westbound, Art, and they're coming up
westbound,
over here
yeah,
in the Meyerland area. Yeah, and this is the Braeswood exit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is
hoping
westbound.
that they'll take off and get on a surface street over here where they can get this guy stopped.
Yeah, I think that they're probably receiving some direction to, you know what, let's try and end this thing as quickly as possible because he's really causing some danger here on the road. All right, so if they're headed westbound, then they're going to be headed north now on...
Yeah, let me give you a wider view. There's Braes Bayou coming up on Meyerland. We're headed northbound back up toward Bellaire, which is, I think, where all of this started in the Bellaire area in southwest Houston.
Yeah, it all started sort of the southwest part of town, Bellaire area, over there on the West Loop. And then he went southbound, then South Loop for a time, all the way over to the Ship Channel Bridge. And then now he's already swung all the way back around, traversed his way through some residential streets, then on the South Loop again, headed westbound, and now he's headed northbound on the 610. He's going to be headed getting up to the Bellaire area. You can see the cross streets there as we approach them with this awesome technology, making a quick exit there, trying to get away from police. This is Bellaire exit. Okay, this is only blocks from the station here, just down the street, a couple of miles. So let's see what happens here because, he's going to turn around. Let's see if he heads back south. He's making the U-turn there. Now he's going to head really southbound on the West Loop.
Yep. Yeah, that was the Bellaire intersection there. So now we're heading
looks like he's getting back on the freeway.
Again.
I think this is the only area he knows. I think we know which area he hangs out. You know, sort of southwest, south part of town. Now, he has to be thinking, you would think, the naturally, level-headed person would be thinking, okay, I'm not able to lose these officers, clearly, because nothing he has done has been able to create that. At this point, he's got to be thinking, all right, maybe I just pull over. But sometimes when the adrenaline is there and it just keeps you moving, you move off that instead of reason-mindedness,
And Art, the other thing, and I'm sure that you've thought of this, and I know that our viewers have too, is that imagine you're minding your own business, you're coming back from the grocery store, out for an errand at lunchtime, whatever the case may be, and you run across a chase, and it's hopefully not you that's involved in the accident that this person creates.
Yeah.
I mean, it's frightening if you stop and think about it.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so here we are. This is the fourth time we have been on the South Loop. Isn't that right? Because now he was headed south on the West Loop. Now he's headed east on the South Loop. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Headed back toward the Astrodome. And I use the Astrodome as a marker because all of us long-timers here in Houston use the Astrodome as a marker. And, of course, we're talking about Reliance Stadium, Reliance Center. But I think everybody gets the picture.
Everyone does, yeah. Because that's been such an iconic, building over the past many, many decades. Some call it the Eighth Wonder. But here we go again. We're going to drive by, you know, I don't know. This guy enjoys doing some sightseeing on the south side because he's done plenty of it. This is at least our 4th or 5th time that we've driven this road, or at least the South Loop in some fashion, east or westbound.
That police car gets oh so close to the
He
back
does.
bumper, and if it were me, I would just want it to ease into the gas and do that Dale Earnhardt pit maneuver on him.
Right. Let's see if it works. And they're awfully, you know, you have to have some degree of fear in doing it on this freeway because you know what's going to happen. It's going to be spinning out of control, slamming into the median, perhaps hitting other vehicles along the way. That's the DPS. That's not HPD now.
That's a DPS.
Right,
Who's now on
yeah.
the tail, who's taking the lead on this.
He's taking the lead on this, and that's interesting.
I think that they have different rules when it comes to the pit maneuver, and that may be what they've done here is to set this up. So as soon as that officer sees an opportunity, he'll pull the pit maneuver on him.
Right.
I think that it's different for Houston. I may be mistaken, but that's what it kind of leads me to believe.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Don, because, you know, once you pulled up closer, I thought, wait a minute, that is no longer HPD. HPD was taking the lead on this. DPS is now taking the lead, and I suppose they're not going to mess around, and so they're going to likely see what they can do here. But DPS is not in the air. No, DPS is in the air, and DPS now is taking the lead on the ground as well.
That's correct, because it was HPD for the longest time.
Right.
I don't know where the swap happened, but it's clear that this is definitely DPS. That's why I zoomed in on that, because I thought, is that DPS? Yes, I confirmed that it was.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell by the emblem
Approaching
on the
288 again there,
side
Art.
of the vehicle. Okay, here we go, approaching that again. You're going to be approaching some construction here as well, right? At some point. Let's see what he does here. There's 288. He's going to get off on the 288 again. Okay, he's exited on 288, it looks like. Let's see if he goes north or south on 288. Looks like he's going to...
288 south.
He's headed south on 288. All right, so once he passes the construction in this area, he could be fairly open, but 288 is only a couple of lanes. You don't have 4 and 5 lanes like you do the loop.
Yeah, this is a huge construction zone all the way down to
area.
Pearland.
It is. You know,
Traffic continues to slow here.
I noticed on you look at the officers following him. The first and the second officer.
Approaching Reed Road.
Yeah, the first and the second are DPS. The third now, the HPD was taking the lead. Now they've dropped into the third, I believe, spot there, behind the DPS. So let's see what happens.
Art.
Yeah. Okay.
And you notice the HPD officer has given the DPS officer plenty of room
Right.
between them,
You're right.
where a DPS is right on the chase suspect's tail. Now they're exiting. This is Reed Road.
Okay, right here at
Is
Reed
this where
Road.
it's going
Let's
to
see what
happen? Are they going to...
Yeah, he's right there on his side. He's ready to do something.
Oh, there we go. We had
there
an
he gets it.
accident
Okay. There, he's going to try it now.
This
You
is
see
an
how
opportunity right here. This is an opportunity right here. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. Oh, he's going to
I think
give
the
up.
person's hands are out of the car.
Yeah, they are.
There they are. We've
It's
come to conclusion here on Reed Road at the Exxon station at 288. We're trying to move around here so we can get away from that telephone pole. I
Yeah.
don't want to get in too close. All the
Sure.
officers have their guns drawn. They have no clue what to expect here.
Right, and you
Typically
have
what
to
will
be
happen
careful.
is they'll order that driver out of the car, and the driver will face away from them and back up toward them and then lay down on the ground. That's the typical way to arrest somebody like this. But you can see officers are all lined up here. Let's just hope that they don't put it in drive and take off.
Let's see what
because there's
happens and who
nothing
we
ahead of
have, whether there is a male behind that wheel or possibly even a passenger or a female. We've seen it all in all of these chases we've covered, but there are a line of DPS, right there with her guns drawn, giving and shouting orders at this point. He did, once he hit that car, he put his hands up in the air and said, well, you know what, maybe I ought to give this up. Let's see what happens, because we've seen them stop and then go.
And you know, the officers don't have any clue whether or not this person has a gun or there's other people in the car with them.
Right.
This is all a big unknown at this point. There is a person that, as you can see at the top of your screen, that's being escorted toward the police car. I did not see anybody get out of it.
No, I
They're
didn't
on the
either.
Sidewalk up there. I don't want to get in too close, Art, because we just don't know what's going to happen here.
Sure. I mean, that's we have to be careful here, and at least a word to the audience. And sometimes we've been in close, and then there are shots fired. The door is open now. He does appear as though he is getting out. Again, we're looking at the vehicle on the left-hand side in the front. It appears that he might be getting out. You see at least a dozen officers all around, and others running toward that vehicle as well, in position with guns drawn. The DPS taking the lead on this, at least with their vehicle and in the air. Don't know, Don, whether they are taking the lead in the air with the DPS chopper. And we just saw it fly by, because the HPD might be grounded because of the helicopter crash recently. We don't know if that's the case, but certainly something to consider.
Yeah, I have not heard that, Art. Usually if DPS wants help, that they certainly have no problem calling HPD helicopter in on this. And I don't see any as I glance around right now. That doesn't mean that they're not here or nearby, but right now it's DPS and us.
Okay, so somebody is out of the vehicle. Fortunately, this thing has come to an end, hopefully. We just hope he doesn't get back in the vehicle and start going. And the reason I say that is because we've seen that happen before, but there must be several orders being given back and forth. Let's see what happens as we continue to watch this play out.
I do see movement outside of the driver's door. There they are. They're standing up.
Yeah. Standing up at this point. His legs are spread, and he appears to be leaning up against his vehicle. And
Correct.
He's walking, or he's possibly walking backward at this point.
Well, we're hoping that he's taking direction and doing exactly what the officers are telling him to do.
And for the audience, we just have to be very careful. That was DPS that flew by, right? Yeah, that looked like DPS.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're here at Reed Road, just to the west of 288, not even a block away from 288. And the situation, to say the least, is tense.
Yeah, because he's not laying down yet. I mean, I don't know whether they're giving him orders to lay down, but generally they will lay down pretty quickly. It appears as though he's maybe taking just a couple of steps backwards, but I've only seen one person so far. I have not seen another, and he's slowly walking back. It appears as though there is only one person in that vehicle. Is that correct?
Don't know. There could be other people, and they just
others.
ordered him to step out of the vehicle. That's typically the case.
Yeah.
They try to only deal with one at a time in these instances. Now he's walking backwards toward them.
Definitely walking
Now they're
back.
going to command him to get on his knees and then on his stomach, face down. There they go. They're moving in now.
On the knees. Okay, the guns are continued to be pointed at the vehicle, seeing if there is perhaps another one in there. But
Yes,
this
they
man
don't
is
know.
under
They're gonna
arrest.
Put the dog over there and make sure that there's not somebody else in the vehicle.
Okay, there's the man under arrest. You can see him up against the DPS vehicle. And the dog went inside the suspect's vehicle, and it appears as though it
So
might
we would
be
assume
empty.
that the vehicle is cleared, that there's no one else in the vehicle. If there were, the dog would still be in there, and officers would be all over it. But it doesn't appear to be anyone else in the vehicle, just him. There's the arrest being made by state troopers, and it looks like undercover police officers.
Yeah, those are
Notice
definitely
that they're
undercover.
in jeans, so we
You're
don't want
right.
to get in too close because we don't want to reveal their identity. There's the trooper.
Yeah, he's going back in the DPS, taking the full lead on this because DPS has taken him into custody. He's going to go into the back of that DPS unit, perhaps. But
I noticed that the DPS officers step back and letting the undercover officers take the arrest.
you know and generally when that happens, when undercover is involved, that means they've been following this man, perhaps. They had surveillance on this man. We're not sure of the situation, but we're only going off a history of experience here, but you can clearly see DPS undercover as they continue to pat this man down. All right, quite a chase this has been. As you have watched at home, no doubt, we have traversed the city, mostly the south side, gone back and forth on the South Loop at least 5 times. He's very familiar with that area. Gone up to the north as well, over to the southeast and the eastbound loop as well, making his way around the city, but now it is brought to a close. It appears as though there is one suspect. The chase is now over. We're going to have, of course, much more coverage if you can continue to watch here on ABC13.com. As well, we will have full coverage of the chase and all the events surrounding it and as to why this man was running on ABC13.com and at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Eyewitness News. We will see you then. Have a good day, everyone. Now back to regular programming.
Breaking news from ABC 13. For more information, head to ABC13.com or open our ABC.
Afternoon here, something that we certainly didn't expect, but because of the light traffic conditions, I think that kind of helped perpetuate this particular chase, and it just continued on and on and on, and finally it came to an end, and the driver put his hands out the window. It took a while for the DPS and HPD to coax him out of his car, get him under arrest, and put him in the back of the squad car, and off to jail he will go. You know, Art, during this chase that there was, there was a person, I don't know whether a bystander or what, but somebody from this area came walking up to all of the action that was going on over here before they effected the arrest of that suspect and wasn't quite sure exactly why. It appears to be that man there or a woman there in the white shirt. I'm not exactly sure what that was about, but I thought that that was rather curious that we had pretty much a bystander moving in toward this very serious arrest that was going on with all of the police guns drawn on the suspect. And you know, the real scary part to me wasn't so much the freeway speeds. It was when he was off of MLK over in that area of town, those neighborhood streets, and he was doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And,
right.
You know, all the kids are out of school. And that's the kind of stuff that really scares me.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's because that's where we've seen so many accidents. And accidents that really have sometimes fatal consequences, but certainly injuries to other individuals. So especially when through a neighborhood like that, that is just so frightening. I mean, you're talking about it, all a kid has to do is get out there and chase a ball, and there's no way that vehicle is going to be able to stop or, avoid hitting anyone. Or anything,
or
for
losing
that matter.
control of the vehicle and slamming into a house.
Right.
We've seen that happen too.
Yeah, we've seen that happen. All right, well, Don, I don't know that there's much else to talk about here. I think we've covered this thing. What do you think?
It's only a matter of time now. They're going to get the wrecker hooked up to the suspect's car. It'll be towed off. Investigation will continue.
Yeah.
Back at police headquarters, they're getting into their cars and they're going to be leaving the scene here momentarily. So yeah, this is pretty much over with over here on the south side, Reed Road and 288. Quite an afternoon, an hour-long chase involving the Department of Public Safety, DPS, and Houston Police, and it's been a crazy chase. A lot of people had this car go past them on the freeway, and they'll have stories to tell when they get home this afternoon, this evening.
They certainly will, Don. They certainly will. Stellar job once again with you in the air and Kevin as well, and getting us, bringing us these incredible pictures as we have watched this thing sort of traverse the entire south side of town and now coming to an end. There you have a suspect in custody, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Art Rascone along with Don Armstrong and Kevin the pilot, and have a terrific day, everyone. We'll see you later.